Is Burger King truly the king of big burgers? Or did McDonald's give its competition a run for its money? The Whopper was one of the original, extra-large fast food burgers. It was first released in 1957, more than a decade before the Quarter Pounder was introduced. The Whopper was the brainchild of Burger King co-founder Jim McLemore, who stole the idea of a big burger from a competitor at the time. A Whopper starts with a quarter-pound patty that's flame-grilled on Burger King's proprietary broiler. Although the toppings can be customized to your liking, a standard build includes lettuce, tomato, onions, pickles, mayonnaise, and ketchup on a sesame seed bun. Cheese is not included on a regular Whopper, though it is a popular add-on. We added cheese to our Whopper for this taste test to ensure an even comparison to the Quarter Pounder with cheese. If a single Whopper just isn't big enough for you, you can order a double or a triple instead. Vegetarians can enjoy an Impossible Whopper made with a plant-based patty, while carnivores may prefer the Texas Double Whopper, which adds cheese, jalapenos, and bacon to the classic formula. Fremont, California-based McDonald's franchisee Al Bernardin created the Quarter Pounder in 1971. It debuted in the 2 locations he owned and swiftly became a customer favorite and a staple at McDonald's restaurants around the globe. The premise of a Quarter Pounder was simple. You got a larger portion of beef than the relatively wimpy patties served on other McDonald's sandwiches. The sandwich was McDonald's answer to the Whopper. It was the chain's first burger that could rival Burger King's flagship offering in size. As suggested by the name, the patty weighs 4 ounces before it's cooked, just like the Whopper. Something else sets the Quarter Pounder apart from the other burgers at McDonald's. Since 2018, it's been made with fresh, never-frozen ground beef. In theory, this gives customers a juicier, more premium burger experience than a pre-frozen patty. The fixings on a Quarter Pounder are rather minimal. The beef is sprinkled with salt and pepper, griddled, then topped with pickles, onions, ketchup, and mustard. All of this is tucked into a sesame seed bun. If you want cheese, the default is 2 slices. For those who prefer more bells and whistles, there is a version with bacon and a deluxe with lettuce and tomato. We paid $9.22 for our Whopper with cheese at our local Burger King, though this was in an area where fast food prices are high. In other locations, Burger King sells the Whopper with cheese for around the $7 mark. Without cheese, the sandwich is listed at $5.99.
Very expensive.
The price of a Quarter Pounder wasn't much easier to swallow. $8.77 with tax for us. Though again, prices will vary depending on location. Whether you choose to pick up a Quarter Pounder or a Whopper, you'll be paying a premium price, and as such, you should expect a premium taste experience. While both burgers feature 4-ounce patties, the Whopper definitely appears much larger than the Quarter Pounder. Part of the reason for this is the number of toppings. The lettuce and tomato add some height to the Whopper. The bun of Burger King's offering is also noticeably larger than the Quarter Pounders. The Whopper's patty is stretched out to fit the wider diameter of its bun, meaning it's thinner than the piece of beef in the Quarter Pounder. But at a glance, the added diameter makes it look larger. The Quarter Pounder's relatively compact form factor does make it tidier to eat than the Whopper. It's relatively easy to hold in one hand without making a mess. In contrast, the Whopper is definitely a 2-handed sandwich, and even if you're careful, you're likely to get toppings everywhere. It's easy to overlook a burger bun and view it as a mere vessel for the meat within, but it has an important role to play. It's the first thing you taste every time you take a bite, and a subpar bun can ruin an otherwise tasty burger. The Quarter Pounder has a much better bun than the Whopper. It tastes like every other bun from McDonald's, intensely sweet. That might seem less than ideal, but the sweet-salty combo of the bun and beef actually works great. The one we tried was also quite fresh, fluffy, and well-toasted. Meanwhile, the Whopper's bun was underwhelming at best. It didn't taste bad, exactly. In fact, it hardly tasted like anything. It lacked the sweetness or the toasty flavor of the McDonald's bun, and the particular one we sampled was a bit dry and stale as well.
Aren't stale hamburger buns just as good?
The lettuce and tomato on the Whopper set it apart from the Quarter Pounder, but they don't do much for the sandwich's flavor or texture. In fact, all of the vegetable toppings on the Whopper were disappointingly bland. The tomatoes added a hint of sweetness, but that was overwhelmed by the enormous puddle of ketchup and mayo that dominated the sandwich. The single slice of unmelted American cheese couldn't stand up to the condiment onslaught and got lost in the shuffle. The toppings on the Quarter Pounder were more restrained, but each one did its job admirably. The 2 slices of American cheese, one on each side of the patty, were both melted. The creamy, salty cheese flavor came through in each bite, because the cheese slices completely enrobed the beef. The pickles were crunchy and perfectly sweet, yet tart. The onions added even more texture, though they didn't have a strong flavor. This burger had a more reasonable amount of ketchup than the Whopper. It also came with mustard, which, unlike the mayo at Burger King, contributed a sharp flavor that cut through the richness of the burger's other ingredients. Burger King has not followed McDonald's lead and switched to fresh beef for the Whopper. It still uses frozen patties for all of its burgers, and that's a huge disadvantage. Like the rest of the Whopper, the beef patty was strangely tasteless. While you may hope for the flame-grilled flavor that the chain brags about in its marketing, there was none to be found. In addition to lacking flavor, the beef also had a soft texture that made it disappear inside the sandwich. The Quarter Pounder's patty actually tasted like beef. It had a savory umami flavor that was enhanced by the deep caramelization it received from its time on the griddle. The griddle also gave it a nice crispy sear on the outside. It wasn't overcooked, making it much juicier than Burger King's offering. We're dealing with 2 big fast food burgers here, so it's obvious that neither of these sandwiches is going to be particularly diet-friendly. That said, the Quarter Pounder is less caloric and fatty than the Whopper. Burger King's signature sandwich clocks in at 760 calories when ordered with cheese, whereas the Quarter Pounder has 520 calories. The calories in the Whopper come with nearly twice as much fat as the McDonald's burger, 46 grams versus 26 grams. The Whopper is also higher in sugar, sodium, carbs, and saturated fat than the Quarter Pounder. On the plus side, it's also higher in protein. If you're looking to get the most food for your buck, the Whopper is a slightly better deal, even though it is marginally more expensive. The sodium and saturated fat levels of both sandwiches are slightly worrisome. The Quarter Pounder has half a day's worth of salt in it, while the Whopper has around 2/3 of the daily value for sodium. It would be hard to remain under the recommended daily sodium limit if you're consuming that much salt in just one sandwich. Sugar is another area of concern, especially with the Whopper. This sandwich contains 14 grams of sugar, which is more than a glazed donut from Dunkin'. McDonald's publishes the full ingredient list for the Quarter Pounder, so you know exactly what's in it. Overall, the ingredients aren't too scary. The patty is 100% beef, and the mustard, ketchup, pickles, and cheese are all made with fewer than 10 ingredients each. The pickles contain a preservative, and the ketchup has high fructose corn syrup in it, which may be a cause for concern for some people. The bun is the most suspect part of the burger. The third ingredient is sugar, and the bun's ingredient list is a paragraph long. Still, overall, the Quarter Pounder's recipe contains a surprisingly high percentage of ingredients you would recognize and use in your home kitchen. It's hard to evaluate how the Whopper compares to the Quarter Pounder in terms of the quality of its ingredients, because Burger King doesn't include a full list of ingredients on its website. We know what's not in the burger, because Burger King announced it was eliminating 120 artificial components from its food in 2021. That list includes things that are still in the Quarter Pounder, like high fructose corn syrup and potassium sorbate. Still, the fact that the King isn't fully transparent with its recipes gives us pause. What is the chain hiding? We'll call this category a draw. It's no secret that fast food typically doesn't resemble the pictures on menu boards and ads. Neither the real-life Whopper nor the Quarter Pounder was exactly the spitting image of its promotional photo.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Turn around, look at that. You see what I mean? It's plump, it's juicy, it's 3 inches thick.
In both cases, the biggest difference between the photo and the actual burger was size. This problem was particularly pronounced in the Whopper, as its official photo makes the sandwich appear sky-high. In person, all you could really see sticking out of the burger was tomato and onion. Everything else was hidden. The patty that was spilling over the edges of the bun in ads was actually smaller in diameter than the bread in real life. In addition, The Whopper in Burger King's official image appears to be crowned with large pieces of green leaf lettuce, but the one for this review seemed to have either iceberg or romaine on it, and the lettuce was cut into smaller pieces. The real Quarter Pounder barely looked like it had any toppings at all besides cheese. Different angles could make it appear slightly bigger or smaller, but overall, there was no visual indication it was anything other than a plain cheeseburger. The bun, however, was just as shiny and fluffy in real life as it was in ads. Overall, the Quarter Pounder looked slightly more appetizing than the Whopper. It was fairly clear after just one bite that the McDonald's Quarter Pounder with cheese was a superior sandwich. A burger is nothing if it doesn't start with a high-quality patty, and the fresh meat from McDonald's tasted much beefier than the bland puck on the Whopper. The Golden Arches could have won on the strength of the meat alone, but on top of that, it bested Burger King in almost every other category. The Quarter Pounder may have started life as a shameless copy of the Whopper, but it has surpassed its inspiration. If you love dousing your burgers in a ton of ketchup or feel like the Quarter Pounder isn't large enough, you may prefer the Whopper. But for most people, a trip through the McDonald's drive-thru will be much more satisfying.